Good morning. I don't normally do these types of videos where I show a lot of detail because it takes away from doing the actual work, but I've had so many requests about Litedeck and how I'm doing it that I thought I'd detail a few things and just kind of show off that data. And you can take from it what you will, or you can correct me and tell me I'm doing it wrong. I'm pretty good at taking criticism. So here's a little video about some of the details and how I'm laying the hydrofoam. Sorry, not hydrofoam, the Litedeck. All right, there is the current view today. It's a lot of concrete, a lot of area. One of the things I like to talk to people about ICF is to dispel the myth that everything has to be perfect. With foam, it's super easy to fix. So right there, my dad actually went through the floor there. Of course, anybody working with Litedeck knows not to step in the valleys. However, it does happen every now and then. You might trip, you might go through. Generally, you don't go all the way through because you fall on the studs, and it prevents you from going through. But just foam it, push it back up, and then put a board on it. And I'll show you from underneath here in a minute where I did that. Then we've got some other areas that beam pockets are going in. Right here in line with that wall right there, there's actually a beam that comes all the way across here. So we'll cut the foam out, leave the steel studs in place, and just lay all the rebar beams across there. So thanks to some helps from some friends, we were able to get a lot of it down this week. This has been down for about a month right here, as this was Litedeck that I already had. As you can tell, it's already starting to age. It gets a little brittle. We need to get it covered here in the near future. We went ahead and used number 5 rebar. This is a 15-foot span here, so we use number 5 rebar, and it is attached directly into the Nidura 6-inch block on this side. And then on the other side, it is the 8-inch block. I'm not a big fan of the Litedeck rebar stands, so these are 1.5 inch rebar stand that are a little heavier duty, and they fit number 5 rebar really well. They'll go all the way up to number 6. At our walls here, we trim out the Litedeck and make sure that we have enough in here, and we'll actually go ahead and dowel this before we pour the next pour. And then over here you can see what we're doing. This is a little bit different. Those are the 2-inch top caps from Litedeck. However, this whole house is going to have radiant heat, so we are going to forego the top caps and go ahead and just use hydrofoam cut to fit on top of those. It pretty much gives us the same height and allows us to go ahead and run our hydronic loops directly in the floor a little bit easier. And in the long run, it's about the same amount of money, so it's not a whole lot extra. We're still finishing up. This is a staircase here. As you can see, we've got a main beam that runs all the way across the house. On this section, it's number 6, and that number 6 will run all the way to that side to create the cantilever for the beam. And then as that beam runs out, it turns into number 8. And then we have 6 number 8s. So that is going to be a 18 by 8 steel reinforced concrete beam. And mainly because we have one really large span over there. This was engineered, it was mainly the shear value at what you would be seeing the left-hand side of that column. That's where we were having a major problem. So we increased the size of the beam, put in number 8 rebar, and now we are way over the numbers. So, and that's before you include some of the other load-bearing walls and the steel in the Litedeck and all that. That would be just if there was concrete on top of there. We did wet set a lot of our dowels, 90s, up here. I don't feel that it went very well. I think the original idea was to drop the concrete down 2 feet from the surface and then set those and pour them monolithically with the floor. However, above the garage door, there's not enough room for that. So for the beams, I'm placing them 6 foot on center, and then I pre-mark, as you can see the arrows there, where they need to go. There's a couple ways to build the beams. We tried putting them all up at once. That didn't go so well, especially with 2x12s that I'd laying around. So we actually built them in pieces. There's one piece still missing right there in the middle. But then temporary supported them, and of course those arrows are where we're going to put the main supports. So right now we're finishing up the garage here. The wet setting over here actually has spaced out correctly and fit into those. When they don't work out well, hi Evie, then we get something like this over here, where we're just going to bend those up to be vertical, and then went ahead and re-drilled into the concrete, and we'll install the rebar directly back into the new holes there. So generally what I do is I take and bend. This will actually be number 6 rebar because this is a 19-foot span. So we'll actually bend and put those in the hole directly with the full rebar itself, like I did over there. This has been in place since I did my first pour, and this is the only time I've had an actual bad failure of the Litedeck. That actually collapsed right in between, but I think it's because it's a short piece, and as you can see, it's been aged in the sun pretty bad. So I'm hoping it's not weakened, but that actually collapsed right through there. So when we put our hydrofoam on top of it, it'll reinforce the whole area. But that's another repair job and example. So from the inside, this is the garage. You can see the beams that I was just showing from upstairs. A couple things that I wanted to show that I'm doing here. One, if you notice, there are screws. So what I generally do is start with one edge and line it up. And once it's lined up, I screw in both steel studs on both ends, and then on the braces in between. And what that does is give you a nice solid area to push against. Now this, I put a 2x4 up there just so I have something to attach to. These actually don't have to be supported like I did with a monolithic pour because that's a filled concrete wall. So the wall's going to be the support it needs. And instead you can just see all the screws in place up there to hold all of the Litedeck in place and keep it from moving. So what I do is get up there, push on it, push it all together, have somebody stand on top of it, or if I'm by myself, hold it down, and then take a 1/8 inch carbide drill bit, drill through the wood into the steel, and then put a screw in. And that seems to help really, really well. As far as the beams go, all right, so here we're in my wife's yoga studio. Same thing, except for you can see this one's completely done.
And gymnastics studio.
And gymnastics. And this one was done exactly the same way, except for these were 31-foot Litedeck forms. And thanks to Chris for coming with his family to help lay those out and get them done. And then you can see we're actually going ahead and putting that, we've got a beam here, and those end at that beam. And then same thing, we screw in every now and then to get those all in place. And then we use T-studs to go ahead and make up the difference. And those will all be installed at 6 foot on center. Now one of the cool things is that I actually, let's see how dark it is in here. I actually have, this is another storage room. Now here's where my father went through the floor. And you can see we just run a 2x6 across that after it's been repaired to prevent that, which when you use good screws and you drill directly up into the steel, they go right in. So super simple. But we were fortunate enough to have a tree fall, and I've got 30 of these. We used Timber King to slice up 30 4x4s out of the fallen tree. It wasn't really good for anything else, so There's a hackberry. And then we'll install those as we finish up in here, and we'll install those in the rest of the rooms. So what we do is we actually use any walls. We went ahead and used a 2x6 wall to provide some of the beams in the house, just to cut down on the overall temporary beams we need to do. And it doesn't hurt to make them a little bit stronger long term. So it takes some of the span length out. And there we've got the concrete column that we're using to support the long span and big beam across the garage. If there's, like I said, I don't normally do these type of videos, but if there's something specific somebody wants me to cover, I wouldn't mind taking the time to do that. So thank you all. Have a good day.